Welcome to the Libertarian Counterpoint. I'm Richard Fields. On the program today, John Cameron, the author of Rewire and Rekill, available on Amazon, and the owner of CustomSalesTraining.com. And Shane Coyle, a libertarian, I have to say this, a libertarian for Trump.
Wasn't that hard?
Yeah, it was terrible. It was, I don't know if I'll survive. But speaking of Trump and of Hillary, the Wisconsin primary results are in, and it looks like the nativism and the trade bashing of Donald Trump did not save him from getting beat by Ted Cruz in Wisconsin, and Bernie beat Hillary.
Well, the exit polls for the GOP definitely came out as 53% as trade being a big deal for those particular voters. As far as Bernie beating Hillary, well, there's not very minorities in Wisconsin, so obviously Bernie, this is definitely his crowd. But going back to Trump beating Cruz, or Cruz beating Trump, well, they're Wisconsin, they're practically Canadians anyway, so. And I guess they got the wool pulled over their eyes because remember, Cruz's wife was a member of Council on Foreign Relations. She actually was part author of the NAFTA agreement. She was also one of the authors of the North American Union. So I mean, everything that Cruz says he's for, his wife is against. So it doesn't.
Sounds like me and my wife, but how is that so unusual?
Right, but if he can't even convince his own wife that her policies are wrong, then how is he going to convince?
You've never been married, have you?
I can tell.
That's true.
I can tell. Yeah, you've got a lot to learn, son.
Wait, if he can't convince, we get to stop right there. You don't even try to convince.
Well, considering the fact that ever since Adam Smith figured it out back in the 18th century. Trade is good. People that trade together usually end up not fighting each other. Now, I'll grant you that the North American Free Trade Agreement and the Asian one, these are not really free trade agreements so much as they are formalized cartel agreements. All you need for free trade is to simply say, we're not going to put up any protective tariffs or any non-tariff barriers to trade. That's all the United States needs to do. If other countries want to do it, so be it. If they want to subsidize our consumers, let them.
But that's where the problem comes in, because we can't convince the other 200 countries to go along with our free trade.
Don't need to.
Well, actually, we do.
Don't need to. If we say we'll trade freely, we will not erect any trade barriers. If other countries want to produce cheaply to subsidize American consumers, that's not a bad thing. That is a good thing.
I totally disagree. And the reason why is we've been doing that for the past 30 years.
No, we haven't been. That's the problem. We haven't been. We've been putting up things like NAFTA and CAFTA and the Panamanian Agreement and a whole bunch of other agreements that are not free trade agreements so much as they are cartelizing trade.
Right, but other foreign countries they've always had their tariffs in place. We've just decided to go tariffless and let them dump their products on our population. And the thing is, what I like most about Trump when it comes to trade is Trump realizes that we control the game. We're the only country on earth that has a population that's willing to sacrifice their future, sacrifice their children's future, go deep into debt to buy crap they don't need. So we control the game. And Trump realizes that. And it's time that we actually take advantage of our strong position and get what's ours.
I mean, our strong position that we don't have any discipline.
Well, that's an individual's choice, and we can't do anything about that. But what we can do is help bring back American jobs and help bring back the middle class, which has been totally hollowed out due to globalization. Globalization's been a complete disaster. Did we not learn anything from Ross Perot? I mean, really.
He had nothing to teach. Ross Perot is totally wrong on trade.
The giant sucking sound from Mexico?
Yeah, you know what?
He was completely right on that.
No, he's not. As a matter of fact, the fact is that the other signature issue for Trump is immigration. I suppose you're in favor of stopping all immigration as well?
No, well, he's not against stopping all immigration. He's stopping illegal immigration.
All Muslim immigration, and he wants to make the Mexicans build a wall. That sounds to me like stopping Mexican immigration. Is he going to let the Canadians in? You might get another Ted Cruz.
Well, they're already all in Wisconsin.
What?
The Canadians. Yeah. They're already all in Wisconsin.
No, but he's for immigration, but he's for legal immigration. I mean, we got to have controls on imports. Well, look at England. Look how that's worked out for them. That's been a complete disaster. I mean, we're having our industries being hollowed out.
Okay. You have a disaster in England. You're talking about the Muslim immigration?
I'm talking about it's all EU immigration in general. It doesn't have to be
I
about race.
Do
didn't-
you want me to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, they have a huge number of immigrants in England, and until very recently, their economy was doing a whole lot better than ours was because they did one thing. Their dole is a little more selective than ours, and they actually cut some support mechanisms for people, unlike what we're doing here. And they cut some layers of bureaucracy, and their parasites make their parasites are in their civil service, unlike our parasites in our civil service, are actually held to a very, very high standard for employment. As a matter of fact, it used to be until recently that the creme de la creme was the people who were at the very top end of good colleges went into civil service careers. And we take civil service people off welfare rolls here. And so that was a difference in their government. It was much more efficient and effective than ours was ever. And they've managed to cut back on it. So they have a huge influx of immigrants, yes, but they absorb them less painfully because the thing that costs us money here with these immigrants taking welfare and support and all the rest of that is not the check that's written to them. It's the check that's written to the parasites that administer the money that is given to them.
Well,
and the English do
other
it much more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah,
than
and
we
the
do.
other thing you need to remember when it comes to immigrants accepting services at the local level, local hospitals taking in immigrants through the emergency room, they are a net cost to Americans.
But at the national
But at the
level,
national
they're not.
level, immigrants put more money into the tax coffers than they withdraw. Why does that happen? It happens because they're working off the books. They're working with fake Social Security numbers, so they're paying Social Security taxes. It's a fake number. They never collect. And the other thing that's happening with Mexican immigration is that ever since 2007, the immigration has been in the other direction. Yeah. Mexicans have been leaving the U.S., going back across the border since 2007 for the last 9 years now. Yeah. The entire country. Since 2007, it's been a net out migration. The reason for that is because the Mexican economy is doing as well as, or perhaps better than,
That's because
the
they have
U.S.
all their
economy.
jobs down there.
Why is that? That's probably a good result for Mexico for NAFTA. NAFTA has benefited from free trade. As a result of them benefiting from free trade, we are benefiting from not having an influx of immigrants taking American jobs.
Okay, well, the problem with your argument is that Mexico's economy is not doing great. Their
but they're
their
doing
oil,
better than
which
ours.
was their number one export, is down by
It's doing better than
two-thirds.
ours by
Their
the evidence.
manufacturing, all of a sudden, Americans aren't buying so many goods from Mexico anymore. So their manufacturing, which has overtaken their oil, is now not doing so well. And now
If the Mexican economy is not doing well, why are Mexicans moving back?
I have no clue on that.
They are.
Show me. I'll have to see the numbers on that. But as far as their number one GDP contributor now is remittances. So the money they get from America back to Mexico is the only thing keeping their economy
That's going down. That's going down.
Knows this.
That's going down because the number of Mexicans in the United States is going down.
But that's
so
a great
remittances are going
indicator
down.
of how many illegals here in America is by looking at the remittances, and that's not going down that much. It's still pretty much flat over the past, since I guess 2007 is when apparently these illegals were leaving. I just don't see it. And as far as just normal immigration goes, and as far as visas go, I can give you a great example. A family member of mine he's a programmer. He goes to college. He has many years of experience. This guy should be able to command an $80,000 a year job. But yet he's not going to get that when he graduates college because they can hire someone from India with a visa and do programming for $35,000 a year.
Let me ask you a question.
How does that help America by lowering our
Let me ask you a question.
wages?
Do you think that simply because politicians have historically drawn lines on maps that people on one side of the line should not have to compete with people on the other side of the line for jobs?
I believe that if
Do
we're
you
in a sovereign
That's
country,
a yes or no question.
repeat the question.
Do you believe that because politicians at one time or another have drawn lines on maps separating one country from another, that a person on one side of the line should be protected from competing with a person on the other side of a line for a job?
No.
Okay, then you're in favor of open immigration, open borders.
No.
No, because that's all it's about.
I'm
That's
for
all it's
Mexico
about.
helping Mexicans
No.
improve their lives.
You help them improve their lives by by being willing to compete with them on a fair basis, a level playing field, and that follows. That's true for Mexico. That's true for India. That's true for every country. If Americans are willing to compete on an equal basis with residents of any other country, that leads to open borders.
Right, but
now you got to get rid of welfare. You got to get rid of welfare to do that.
We have apparently we have open borders for Mexico's, but we don't have. Mexico does not have open borders to Americans. We can't
Sure.
go in there. You can't go down there and buy property. You can't go down there.
Of course I can.
No, there's restrictions
Of course I
against
can.
that.
No.
Specific prescription.
The only I know something about this. I've shot for property in Mexico. I've bought property in Belize, and the only restriction in Mexico is it's difficult to get shoreline property. You got to do a 100-year lease. But interior, no problem. You can buy as much property as you want.
Okay.
Fee simple. There is no problem whatsoever. You can also go into business in Mexico if you want to. You can go. In fact, there are expat communities where a large majority or a large percentage of the residents are American expats who are going into business, doing whatever it is they want to do for business, whether it's an import-export business or running a shop or running a restaurant. Those kinds of businesses are welcome in Mexico.
All right. Well, I'll give you the point on that one. I'm obviously not an expert on Mexico.
Okay.
What I tend to want to have something of opinion on is America. I mean, American citizens, our wages are being driven down, and it's not just programming.
You know why? Because we are competing with people who have lower living standards. The average, I think is $90,000 or $90 per day or $23,000 per year is the delineating point between the top 99% and the top 1%. So if you make less than $90 per day, you are worldwide now. You are in the top 1%. Now that's most Americans. If you make more than $90 a day, you are in the top 1% worldwide. And
I agree with that.
Yeah, and if you are going to say that because you are born in India or you're born in Bangladesh or you're born in some godforsaken hole in Africa, you should not have to compete with Americans, I disagree with that. I think you should have to.
Richard,
I think Americans should have to compete.
Theoretically, and morally, and all the rest of that.
It's a moral question.
And it's a moral. And I agree with you. And it's not a but; it's an and. We had. I'm not going to say we had. In this country, people used to be able to go get jobs and work with their hands, and work with their. I mean, just the ability to do things well. You could go get a job manufacturing something, making something, working somewhere, and earn a decent wage. Where you could pay a mortgage in many cases and provide for a family. And all of those jobs, any job where something is manufactured that's not highly complex, that requires an awful lot of technical training, can be exported, and it is. What would you say, even though the moral ground is correct, and I agree with you, what would you say to those people who've worked in a factory for 20 years and worked very hard and provided a great product and service, and now that factory is in Mexico?
I think the problem that you're describing is not so much competition from immigrants, because we've pretty well made that really, really difficult for most jobs. The problem,
it's exporting of the job in the factory to Mexico. And that happens.
Okay. But you're really talking. I think the real driver.
Moral ground.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I think the real
right.
driver for what you're describing is not so much factories in other countries, so much as it is automation and robotics and other ways of making it possible for American employers to do the same thing, or employers overseas to do the same thing with robotics.
To a certain extent, I mean, there are programmable machine tools. There are something like 120,000 jobs in this country going begging because there aren't people who are qualified to program machine tools. We could have Americans have always been machinists. Mm-hmm. We've always fixed and tinkered and invented. And now the the things we're fixing and tinkering and inventing are at a level where it requires a little bit of almost computer programming. So those jobs are being taken over by robots to a certain extent. But until they are taken over by robots, there's a lot of them. They're just made by people for $1.50 an hour in Mexico that used to be done for $15 an hour in Tennessee.
I grew up on to answer your question,
Yeah.
I grew up on a farm in Minnesota,
Yeah.
which was, when I grew up on it, was 240 acres. And it was a farm that my parents and my brother, me and my two brothers were able to survive on very nicely, based on the amount of productivity and the price of grain and the price of livestock and so forth. If you were to do that, try to do that today, it would be damn near impossible because the economics have changed. Should progress be stopped so that I can maintain my status frozen in time? No. Progress moves on. I have to do different things. I have to do different things as mechanization changes, as division of labor changes, as the world changes. And people who are used to working at General Motors and now don't have a job at General Motors because Toyota's doing a better job and they're manufacturing overseas, they've got
Actually, they're mostly manufacturing in Tennessee.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Bad example, but you get the point. The point is that we do need to compete worldwide, and I think we should, and I think it is ultimately a moral question. And I don't have a real good answer for the fact that some people are losing their jobs other than they're going to have to retrain and get another job.
I have a great answer for that, and it's Trump's answer. Put a 20% tariffs on everything.
Oh,
Let me finish it real quick. 20% on everything. Limit immigration and lower our corporate tax rate to 15%, would probably be the most up there with Ireland as the most competitive. And what you will see is a massive amount of jobs coming from China, from Japan, from Korea, from Vietnam, all coming back to America, because why would you want to run a factory in China?
Have you heard of Smoot-Hawley?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was a different time, though.
No, it's not.
Because we were an
it's a different time, but
we were
it's the
an
same.
exporter country then, and
it's the same principle.
We actually had a
It's the same
surplus and
principle.
not massive.
If you do,
debt.
if you do what Trump is suggesting, and nobody else retaliates, and everybody else
They have retaliated.
stays exactly.
We've been in I know where you're going with this trade war, and the problem is that we've been in a trade war. We've always been in a trade war.
Okay, well, trade war leads to no trade. And no trade makes everybody poor. That's the ultimate direction.
It makes the other countries poor because they don't have the same consumers we do.
It makes all countries
poor. We have a
poor.
hole of $500 billion worth of stuff that we need imported in. Why can't we fill that hole ourselves?
We're going to disagree on whether Trump is right on immigration and trade very strongly and vehemently. However, there are things about Trump that are really interesting. Trump is kind of a Rorschach test. If you look at Trump, the people who are losing their jobs are flocking to both either Trump or Sanders because both are Rorschach tests. They're people who say, you know what, maybe he's not establishment. He's self-funding his own campaign.
Sanders is establishment, though.
He's not perceived as establishment. Trump is not
How's
perceived.
he managing that?
Trump is not because he's a commie. Trump is not perceived as establishment. So you've got people sort of like Obama. Remember his campaign slogan, hope and change?
Yeah.
What did that mean? That meant nothing. He was a Rorschach test. Everybody projected their own beliefs on him and just assumed that his beliefs were their beliefs and he would be able to save everything. That's what people are doing with Trump. But he's making a couple of good points when it comes to NATO.
Yeah.
Why are we funding NATO? 75 years,
Yes, me.
however
I have
long
no answer.
after World War II.
And we're 73% of the funders of NATO.
No reason at all. It's stupid. We're dumb. That's a stupid thing to do,
Okay.
unless you're Northrop Grumman or you're Boeing or you're somebody who is
you
in
just
the
answered the question.
defense industry. That's the only reason why we're
Wasn't
funding
there
NATO.
an American president who warned
Yeah,
of
Dwight
the
D.
military industrial
Yeah,
complex?
right after
and
World
he
War
was
II.
a general.
And he was right. So he's got the right idea when it comes to NATO. He's got the right idea when he said that Iraq was a disaster. He's got the right idea when he says that we need to be really, really, really careful about foreign entanglements. Of course, we've heard that before. George W. Bush said the same thing.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So I don't know whether or not I can believe Trump on that, but he's saying the right thing.
Wow.
Well, in defense of George W., Saddam Hussein did such a good job of disinformation that his own generals believed that he had weapons of mass destruction, and our armed forces has...
It says more about the CIA
has
than anything
copies
else.
of... No, if his own generals believed it,
Yeah.
then why should we not? And we
No.
knew that the raw material was going there, the yellow cake was going there, and we knew that he had the capability to build sarin and all the rest of that. So he did a great disinformation campaign, kind of along the lines that once the official secrets limitations on it and it's open to purview, as we'll find that the brilliant Ronald Reagan used Star Wars disinformation campaign to bankrupt the Soviet Union. And disinformation works.
Yeah.
So I think we should put together a disinformation campaigin.
But now you've said it, so it won't work.
Well, they'll believe it's a double blind. But anyway, let's go ahead.
Moving on.
I'm sidetracked.
The interesting thing about this election campaign, of course, is the fact that Trump may or may not get the 1,273 or however
Doesn't matter if
many
he does
delegates.
anyway. They
Many
can-
delegates he
Yeah, they'll
needs.
just change the rules anyway. So
He needs to win on the first ballot. If he doesn't win on the first ballot, or if they change the rules so he can't, then we have a brokered convention. What happens then?
Trump will not be the GOP
Who will?
candidate. Well, from what I'm hearing, it's going to be either. They want Kasich because he seems to have more favorability in the GOP elite.
He's safe.
But it won't-
He'll protect the
but-
establishment.
But Cruz beats Hillary or is very
Nobody
close.
likes Cruz because Cruz is too.
A flip-flopper?
Actually,
And reactionary?
Actually, on foreign policy, the guy is and immigration, the guy is terrible.
Yeah.
But on domestic policy, he's great.
Well,
On
except
domestic
for
economic
civil
issues,
liberties.
not on civil liberties, domestic economic
You're
issues.
cherry picking here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, granted, domestic economic issues, he's close to perfect. On everything else, terrible. The real question I'm getting to here is, we've got Gary Johnson, who's the leading candidate for the Libertarian Party nomination.
The only one that's not a murder suspect.
Well,
Alleged.
or 35.
Yeah.
I'm a delegate to the Libertarian National Convention. Did you know that?
No.
Oh yeah,
Cool.
I just got selected. I'm going to Florida in May, Memorial Day weekend, to back Gary Johnson.
What
for,
county is that again? Let's warn the sheriff.
It's wherever Orlando is. Anyway, that's where I'm going, and I'm going to support Gary Johnson. And the question I have for you guys is that if it turns out to not be Trump, if it turns out to be Kasich or Cruz or somebody else other than Trump versus Hillary or Bernie, I still believe that Obama could pull the plug on, tell the Attorney General to, file charges on the wiretap or the Filegate stuff. So it could be Bernie could still win. Either way, where does a Libertarian candidate stand going forward in 2016?
I would love to take this one. There's going to be a potential revolution between both Democrats and Republicans, and that will leave a Libertarian candidate open for a win. Now, as far as becoming the actual president, the only way I can see that happening is him getting in the debates. If he does not get in the debates, in the national debates, he has no chance. So I would say that the number one thing for Libertarians to do right now is to band together and protest outside of Fox News, protest out of CNN, protest at the National Debate Committee, and demand that Gary Johnson get in the election to get into the debates. If that happens,
and remember, Emily, early money is like yeast. The feminists use it. Libertarians can use it too. You need to donate to Gary Johnson early on,
right?
So that he can do paid media to
because I think he only got $2.5 million last time.
Yeah, he needs to get to that 15% polling threshold that gets him into the debates.
So let's just throw around some ideas here. So if it's Hillary, then because Libertarians were going strong last year, and now a lot of the young people are following the popular Sanders as the anti-establishment person. If it's Hillary, then some of the people, Sanders won't go third party, so some of those people would go to Johnson. If it's Kasich, then some of those people will go to Johnson. But then you're going to have the problem is that some of those people who would normally go to Johnson, Trump will then go third party, and so you'll have...
Is Trump going to go third party? Is he going to have a way of doing it?
I don't think he can
realistically?
get on the ballot in time, so
Yeah,
I don't think
I think
that's
I don't think he can. I don't think Trump can go third party.
All right. So if
Because
he's,
of ballot access
so
law.
Trump's
Right.
out of there. So what you're going to have is where will the reactionaries go that are favoring? And I'm not saying so. Yeah, they are. They're reactionary.
Well, no, nativists.
So nativists.
Yeah.
So where will they
Populists.
go? They won't go Sanders if Hillary's out. They won't go Hillary if Hillary is out. Would they support the person that they believed done their boy wrong? No, they might go Johnson.
Well, that's what I'm
So,
thinking.
yeah.
You got a candidate who is pro pot, pro gay marriage, pro
abortion.
choice, and all of the women's issues. He's on the right side. He's on the right side on all of the civil liberties issues. He's on the right side on the foreign policy issues for the most part.
Not right. He's on the correct
Side, yeah.
Correct side.
Correct side on all of these issues. And I'm guessing that a good chunk of the Ron Paul youth people will be able to go to Gary Johnson without too much problem over a Hillary. Over a Bernie, not so much. And I think that the older disgruntled conservatives might be able to go to a Gary Johnson more so than some of the other choices.
I don't think
it's a crapshoot. Who knows? We'll see.
What?
Will the Panama Papers have any effect on any of this? I mean,
Yeah, baby. Oh well, Panama Papers. There's a little law firm that nobody ever heard of down in Panama that supposedly created literally millions of offshore accounts and companies residing in mailboxes for the purposes of doing what? Well, unfortunately, if you listen to the liberal media, they're evading taxes, but they don't make they don't see any difference between avoiding taxes and evading taxes, and there are perfectly good reasons for creating businesses offshore. In many cases, you have to have a business parked somewhere in order to do business there. So, but it's still a lot of skullduggery is being reported, and it's going to come to light. So I think it's
Well,
gonna,
so far, it's only, for the most part, it's only Putin and other foreign
some Chi-Coms.
president
you know.
of Iceland and
My
some of the
pleasant name for Chinese communist.
Yeah.
Chi-Com.
So far, it's mostly
Well-
foreigners, but I'm guessing that there's going to be a lot of Americans on
Well,
that
what
list
I'm
as
reading,
well.
it's either between 200 and 400 Americans that are actually on that list and that have not been reported by the media. I don't know why. I mean,
I think they're waiting.
or they're just holding
Biding their
information
time.
back.
Yeah,
Until election
they're,
time.
They're leaking it out as slowly as possible. Well, we'll be there to watch. That's the show.
And
We'll
laugh,
see you,
as usual. Or cry.
see you again next time, same place. On the Libertarian Counterpoint, thank you very much for being part of the show. We'll see you next week.